Borough's good run come to an end last night to the league leaders Leeds as they were edged out by a 0-0. But were we really edged out? What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Project Boro, where we of course review and preview every Boro game here on the channel, and today we are unfortunately discussing a Boro defeat. No surprise, a defeat to Leeds. They always seem to find a way to beat us. But last night they came to Riverside and an early goal from Dan James after only 2 minutes sealed the deal for Leeds and sent them back to the top of the championship, with Boro having their first defeat in 4, ending a pretty good run of form, a pretty good run of results for Boro. But I really don't know how to sum this one up, because I mentioned we were edged out, which is one way of looking at it. There's two ways of looking at it. The first is that we were edged out because if you look at the game at face value, 1-0 Leeds, and with some of the chances Boro had and just how wasteful we were in front of goal, you could look at it and say, yeah, we were edged out. We were unlucky to not get anything from the game. On another day, we might have nicked a point, yada, yada, yada. However, you could also look at it from another perspective, which is probably reality, and I'll be absolutely honest, if the shoe was on the other foot and it was Boro that this had happened to, I'd be fuming. Really, if the linesmen weren't as incompetent as they were last night, Leeds United should have beat us by 3-0. And it would have been a completely different game. So that's where I'm struggling, and that's how I don't quite know how to judge the game, because if I judge it off of what actually happened, yeah, Boro could have quite easily came away with something last night, and we were our own undoing because of how bad we were in the final third. Don't get me wrong, everywhere else, Boro were absolutely great last night. I thought defensively, I thought we were very good up against, undoubtedly, for me, the best team in the league, the undoubted best attack, especially in the league. And I thought in midfield we were tremendous, compared to previous meetings against Leeds where we've really struggled up against their midfield. I thought our midfield stood up to them really well, and I thought we were excellent in midfield. But we got to the final third, time and time again, we were so poor in the final third last night. I've lost count of how many times we worked ourselves into good areas. The final ball, apart from Ilan Jr.'s crosses, which I'll get to later, the final ball or the final decision or the shot was skewed across goal, over the bar. The amount of great opportunities we absolutely wasted in really good positions was criminal, really. But then, as I say, at the same time, we were only really in the game at that stage because the linesmen at both ends disallowed 2 blatant Leeds goals, and I can't fathom or believe and see how the hell they've got them so wrong. And it's a different game. If Leeds had gone 2-0 up just after half an hour, there'd have been no way back for Boro for me. I think if it had gone 2-0, it's a different game. And then it should have really been 3-0 at the end when they were sort of picking us off on the counter. So, yeah, this is a tough game to judge, really. I mean, as a result, I'm not going to get too low about it. I think this will be the toughest test. It should be, on paper at least, the toughest test of Boro's running. And I still felt like, whatever you want to say about the linesmen, the decisions, I thought we put out a good account of ourselves last night. I thought we stood up to Leeds really well. We were very competitive, and I thought we were much better against Leeds compared to what we were in the game at Ellen Road. So there's positives to take, but I still feel like in key moments, key attacking players really let us down last night. A little bit akin to the second half against Blackburn, where in that game we should have made it 3-4-0 second half. We got ourselves into great opportunities on the break. In their defensive third, we kept fluffing our lines. The final ball, the cross, the shot was poor. It was the same last night. So that's my only real concern going into the next few games, is that Boro's attacking play seems to have just stuttered a little bit. We were able to get away with it against Blackburn because we put them away early, whereas last night it was definitely our Achilles heel, and it held us back massively, and maybe that means that changes have to now be made in Boro's attacking 4. But still, edged out 1-0, best team in the league came to the Riverside. I think for me, Boro just need to brush this one off. Don't dwell on it, move on, get back on it, because quite honestly, we don't have time, we don't have room to dwell on it, because, well, the next game is absolutely huge, which we'll look at the end. So, Boro did go with an unchanged team. I'm not surprised by that. Once again, FootMob just gets completely confused by Boro's lineup, but it was a unchanged team. And I'm not against Carrick for going unchanged. You know, I get the don't change a winning team narrative. I subscribe to that many times. You know, I didn't excuse Carrick for not changing the team. I don't blame him at all. But there would have been changes I made. As I mentioned in the preview, there were a couple of players in Boro's attack which I just wasn't sure. You know, I didn't like Bergzorg on the right. I didn't have Iheanacho in my team at all. And I got it, you know, and I understand why people didn't want to change a team that had been on such a good run. 100%. But I don't know. I've not liked Bergzorg on the right-hand side. I'd much rather him be on the left. I think we are starting to see Azaz drop off quite significantly again, and he's been playing on the left, so maybe you bring him back into the middle. I mean, in my preview, I had Azaz in the middle with Whittaker and Bergzorg either side of him. Didn't have Iheanacho in the team at all. And when I put that team on Twitter, I got absolutely slated by some people for daring to change a winning team. But honestly, there were just some players that I looked at and thought, I don't think that'll work against Leeds. I didn't want Bergzorg on the right. I just don't think it suits him. And I didn't think Iheanacho would work in the 10 because, as I say, he's a player who has the agility of a train, and against a team who are as hard with their press and play at such intensity, I just didn't feel like he'd have the time on the ball or the space to do anything really of sorts, and that's exactly what happened. And I won't get into individual performances until later on, but Iheanacho had probably his worst game in a Boro shirt by far. So yeah, I get Carrick why he didn't change the team, but in hindsight, I think a couple of changes might have definitely benefited Boro. But onto the game, it didn't start well. Arguably the worst possible start we could have asked for, in all honesty, and a bit like with the start we had against Blackburn, there was another early goal, but sadly it went the other way. And the criminal thing here with Boro is that we didn't start well enough. You know, you've got to match Leeds' intensity from the get-go. And I thought they hit the ground running from minute one. It took us a bit of time to warm into the game. And unfortunately, against these top sides, you're not given time. And they put us away after only a minute or so. Dan James, a player I picked out in my preview, was a danger. You know, 11 goals and 9 assists he had up until that point. An absolute terror of a player. I mean, I know he's quick. I was watching him in the flesh last night. I couldn't believe how quick he was. You've got to be on it against, you know, Dan James and both their wingers. You know, I mentioned how big of a night it would have to be for our fullbacks, and unfortunately they both got undone within the first 2 minutes. Firpo played an outstanding ball in behind Dijksteel, who just wasn't quite on it. He was a little bit asleep, caught on the back foot, didn't react quickly enough. Solomon in behind, and that's the difference in levels. You know, that's the difference between a top championship player and a more mid-championship player. Dijksteel just not quite up to pace with Solomon, who ran in behind. His ball was absolutely brilliant to the back post. And Illing Jr., I mean, if he'd have reacted a millisecond earlier, he might have had more of a chance of getting to the ball. And maybe Dan James's sheer pace is what got him there. But he just beats Illing Jr. to it. It's so close. I mean, I think Illing Jr., if he maybe slides, throws his body at it a bit more, he might have gotten something on it. I don't know if he was worried about scoring an own goal or maybe conceding a penalty, but he just gets beaten to it by Dan James, and it's in the back of the net. And it's probably Boro's worst possible start, to be honest, going 1-0 down to Leeds. And the first 10 minutes, it threatened to get ugly, to be honest with you. They were by far the better side and looked streets ahead of Boro. But we settled down after that, and I thought we responded relatively well. We had a pretty good spell, as you can see in the momentum, you know, sort of from 10 minutes onwards up to half an hour. I thought we had some really, really good spells of possession, but we just couldn't quite break through. And that's no surprise. You know, Leeds aren't credited as much for their strong defence, but as I said in my preview, they've got probably the best defence in the league, really, when it comes to their XG against. So they're right up there for me alongside Burnley with the best defence in the league. And you could see, you know, Boro were just not able to break through. And again, the quality in the final third was massively letting us down. And Leeds just sort of, you know, were able to just keep Boro at arm's length, defend well. We just couldn't quite break them down. We had a few openings here and there. Conway had a goal, which wasn't in the highlights, I don't think, which was rightfully given as offside. So they got that one right. But one they didn't was Tanaka's, and yeah, this was poor from the officials. An amazing cross from the left-hand side from Dan James. I mean, the whip on this, pace and placement was absolutely perfect. And Tanaka is miles onside. He's arguably not only behind Hackney, he's probably behind Vandenberg as well. And I don't know how the linesman, who is behind the camera, well, below the camera at a point of the where you can see the line, I don't know how he's not seen that Tanaka's behind Hackney. I really don't. It's a baffling decision, and as I say, I try and be as unbiased as I can be on here. If it was me, I'd be furious with that. It's a shocking decision from the linesman. And this is where my perception of the game sort of skews a little bit, because as great as Boro were second half, and as much as we could have, should have gotten that equaliser that you could say we deserved at the time, if this was rightfully given, it'd have been game over anyway. And that's where I'm struggling, because if Leeds had gone 2-0 up, Boro were never going to get back into the game from there. I just never saw us scoring 2 goals to equalise against Leeds. For me, I said at half-time and it was 1-0. If they get a second, it's game over. If Boro got an equaliser, we might actually go on and win the game. It was just, do not let them score again, and they should have. They should have had a second goal on the half hour. Boro were very, very lucky the linesman just for some reason disallowed it, and we go into half-time 1-0 down. And second half, I thought we were much better. I thought we were very, very good second half. They started well, had a good start to the second half, but it was mostly Boro, to be honest with you. It was mostly Boro possession. We pushed them back. We pushed them into their defensive third. We had them pinned in. And to be honest, that might have been part of Leeds' game plan. They did make some defensive subs as the second half went on. I think their plan maybe was to sit deep, soak up pressure and hit us on the break, because there were a number of opportunities on the break where they could have done better. You know, Travers was forced into a relatively big save in the second half. But I thought Boro were brilliant second half. I really did. I thought in possession we were really good, passing it around Leeds, probing. I don't think they looked like there was anything between the sides second half. I thought Boro looked an absolute match for Leeds. And it was just a case of, could Boro find a way through? And a bit like the first half, if not worse, we just kept squandering chance after chance after chance after chance. And there were a few culprits. You know, I thought Bergzog was a big one. He had so many chances on the right-hand side, which he just absolutely spanned wide. The composure, the finishing was really poor from him. And it's been happening for a few games now, to be honest. Bergzog seems to have lost form a little bit. Finazaz had a huge one, an absolutely huge chance. He had so much time. And a player of his quality, you'd expect far more composure. But Azaz just threw his foot at it and it went flying over the bar. It was a really, really poor finish. He's so much better than that. Finazaz, you know, the only real quality came from Illing Jr., who put so many balls in the box. He was absolutely top class tonight. You know, I looked at the difference between Dijksteel and Illing Jr., and I saw Dijksteel struggle on one side. Illing Jr. was just terrific on the other. You know, defensively up against Dan James, it's hard enough against him at the best of times. I thought Illing Jr. did really well. And then going forward, he gave Firpo a nightmare at times as well, beat him on a number of occasions. Some of the balls he put in the box were absolutely unreal. You know, first half, I forget, he put one in for Iheanacho, and Iheanacho hit a shot that almost left the stadium. It was that bad. Illing Jr. couldn't do much more in that game. You know, at the very death, he put a ball in, which was perfect. It's such a great area. Byram had to head it behind. I thought the only quality we had in the second half came from Milling Jr., who just looked, once again, levels above on that left-hand side. But unfortunately, the forwards in front of him could not finish, you know, and it was really, really poor from Boro. Azaz, Bergzog, criminal for the chances they fluffed. Conway didn't really have any, unfortunately. He might have stood a better chance of finishing one of the chances, and Iheanacho just had a poor game. He just could not get up to the pace of the game whatsoever, and I've seen a few people make some good points on Iheanacho. I think the excuse of him being unfit shouldn't be valid anymore. I think it's well past that now. He's been here long enough. He's had an international break. I think it's clear to see that in that 10 up against teams like this, he's so far off it. It's unbelievable. And it's a shame for him. You know, I thought he was making good progress in recent games, but he completely reverted back to where he was to start with tonight. He was so poor, Iheanacho. Really, really bad. And one of the biggest cheers of the whole game actually come from when he was subbed off, which I didn't partake in. I felt bad for the lad, really. I've never really, cheer a player going off, because I feel like while he's here, we need to keep his confidence as high as possible. But for me, yeah, he was probably one of the worst players on the pitch. Really, really poor. Boro were just never really going to score. It was just so poor from us in the final third. And once again, Leeds should have had another. We talk about Tanaka's disallowed goal being a bad decision. Bamford's was arguably worse. They broke on us again second half, which was probably their game plan. They're such a dangerous side on the break. I think it was Nonto who slipped it in to Patrick Bamford. And it would have been awful to see Bamford score, honestly. It would have been awful. It would have been typical. And he'd have loved it. I'm glad it was disallowed, just because I didn't have to see Bamford celebrate at the Riverside in a Leeds shirt. But he was onside once again by a good yard, and you can see the linesman in the picture. How the hell he's not gave that goal is absolutely beyond me. I honestly have no idea what these linesmen were doing. He's clearly behind Dijksteel. It's another joke of a decision from the linesman, and Boro get really, really lucky for the second time in the game, and Leeds should have been 3-0 up, really. And that's where the perception of the game changes, as I say. And, I think as much as I praise Boro, I thought Leeds were very good. I thought defensively they were solid. I thought Boro tested them, really, really tested them. But you can certainly see the quality Leeds possess down the wings. I thought Boro had just a few weak areas, were not quite up to standard. Dijksteel, I don't think, was good enough up against their left-sided players. And obviously, final third, we just didn't have the clinical, ruthless quality that they had. Because, as I say, it should have been 3-0. And then we're looking at a completely different game. So maybe the scoreline flatters Boro a little bit. Maybe the linesmen have saved this game from looking a lot worse from a Boro point of view. But I thought we put a good account of ourselves. But unfortunately, our quality in the final third massively let us down. And the stats sort of reflect that. Boro actually had better XG than Leeds. Leeds only had 5 shots. But of the 3 that were on target, one of them resulted in a goal, and they could have had 2 more. So that tells you that what sort of team they are. Even when they've not got as much of the ball, even when they're defending, even when they're on the back foot, they're still very clinical, and they take their chances when they come. And I think that's what the top sides in this league do. You flip that onto the other side of things, you look at Boro's chances, we had more XG, we had 12 more shots than Leeds, almost as many on target, but it's telling that of the 17 shots Boro had, only 2 were on target. 15 shots were off target. It just shows how wayward Boro's attacking and quality was in the final third. And as I say, it was the same against Blackburn. It's a worry. It's something we need to address. We can't be throwing away chances and being as poor in the final third as we are, because as we know, Boro's defence has improved massively. I'll give them that, but we rely massively as well on our attacking output. And setting off against Blackburn, against Leeds, wasn't quite up to standard. And then we look at the Boro players and their performances, and I've alluded to quite a few of them already. Across the board, though, again, I thought Travers couldn't do much about the goals that Leeds did score. Did make a big save second half, which would have definitely made it 2-0 from Boro. I thought the defenders were pretty good. I think Dijksteel was the only one that struggled. I think the other 3 were very, very good. Illing Jr., especially down the left, is brilliant. As I say, his balls into the box are top draw. Dijksteel was the one that struggled, and I think does just tell you the level Dijksteel is at. I know a few fans have called for him to get a contract extension. Not for me, I'm afraid. I feel like Boro needs to be ruthless in the summer transfer window. And Dijksteel's a solid Championship right back, and he would do a job for any side who are just in the middle of the Championship. But if you want to push for playoffs, you want to push for promotion, we need better in that position, I'm afraid. And I think that was sort of telling last night. Midfield was great again. Hayden Hackney, especially an absolute standout performer alongside Illing Jr. His defensive work continued to be brilliant last night. His offensive output was brilliant. His ball carrying, I thought Hayden Hackney was once again top draw and did not look out of place whatsoever up against the best side in the Championship. And as I alluded to, once again, the front 4 of Boro's just let us down. I think Conway didn't really have the opportunities and did have a goal disallowed, so he's not really included in this, but the three behind him were just not good enough. Azaz, his form's fallen off a cliff again. Not quite sure I'm enjoying him on the left-hand side, if I'm honest. Iheanacho's had a run in the team where he's done okay, but I would not excuse Carrick at all for taking him out the next game. I feel like maybe for his own doing as well, it could be good to take him out. I know Carrick's come out and backed him, and I understand why. But for me, he's a lone player. He's not our player. We do not have to persist with playing him if we don't need to. And we've got other players in behind him who are our players, who I think we should maybe bring in at this stage just to take Iheanacho out the firing line for a little bit. Because as I say, the reaction to him going off from Boro fans was a sarcastic cheer. It's not going to help the guy's confidence. And I think as much as Carrick wants to keep putting him in the team in hope that he'll improve and that'll help his confidence, I think you've also got to take him out the team, to take him out the firing line as well. And maybe he'll gain confidence by maybe coming off the bench and having more of an impact. But yeah, I think we're definitely looking at the next game now to make changes. I'd definitely bring Azaz back into the middle. I'd probably move Bergzorg back onto the left, or maybe take him out for maybe a return in Riley McGree. And then you've got maybe Marcus Forss to come on that right-hand side, or Morgan Whittaker. So there's options there for Boro to change it. I'd be surprised if he persisted with the same front four. I think there's certain players in there that just look out of position, out of form, who I think need moving around. Azaz central, Iheanacho probably benched, and Bergzorg, if he is going to play, I'd only play him on the left. I would not play him on the right-hand side anymore. And then looking at the league table, it's just so crucial at this stage how every result will have such an impact. Bristol City got a late winner against West Brom last night. I did think that might put West Brom out of it, and to be honest, it still might. If Coventry win tonight, at time of recording, which I think listen, I'm not going to prejudge Pompey. I love Pompey, and I'd love them to do as a job at the CBS. I do expect Coventry to win that. I'm expecting Coventry to go up to 62 points tonight. That puts West Brom 5 points off 6th with 5 games to go. You'd have to say West Brom, losing 3 in a row, might well be out of it now. So is it now instead of 2 from 4? Is it 2 from 3? I mean, it might not be at the weekend. Boro have Millwall. We'll, of course, be back to preview that game probably tomorrow. That's now massive. I didn't clock how close Millwall were to us. They're 3 points off Boro. What an incentive for Millwall that is. At the Den, they literally see the playoffs in front of them. Boro are in 6th currently, and if they win, they're level on points with us. So Millwall have a giant incentive on Saturday to beat a team directly between them and the top 6 and possibly make a late run for it. So I cannot fathom how big of a game this is at the weekend for Boro. Because if Coventry go 2 points clear, we cannot let that gap get any bigger. If we're 2 points behind Coventry after tonight, and then maybe we fail to beat Millwall and we're 3 points, dare I say 4 or 5 points behind Coventry and Bristol City, with then only what will be 4 games to go, it then looks unlikely, if I'm honest. And it then looks more likely Boro will have to go and win at Coventry on the final day if the gap does grow to that. So if results don't go our way tonight, Millwall's a must-win. It literally is a must-win. Not only will we completely put them out the playoff picture, and I think take another team out of it, it'll probably keep us in touch with Bristol City and Coventry and make it a 3-horse race. But Boro can't fall any further behind than 2 points if Coventry win tonight. So big eyes on that game. Saturday is massive. We are at a point in the season now where it is, we always say must-win, do or die, sink or swim. It absolutely is that now. The impact each result has is ginormous at this stage. You can't put a foot wrong, and that's why Boro have to get right back on it now and be squeaky clean between now and the end of the season. Because as I say, this was always going to be the tough test for me. This was always going to be the game I thought we were most likely to lose, but we can't put a foot wrong now. Between now and the end of the season, it is clutch time, and it starts on Saturday against Millwall. So we'll keep an eye on the Coventry result tonight. Boro do have goal difference over Coventry. That might play a part in the end, but we cannot lose at the weekend. We cannot fall any further behind. It's simply that important at this stage of the season. So, there's my thoughts on this one. Let me know yours in the comment section below, whether you're a Boro fan, Leeds fan, or otherwise. And of course, if you've enjoyed the video, hit a like on the video, subscribe for more, and hit the bell too so you never miss when a video drops. Of course, you can listen to the Project Boro series as a podcast if you check out the link tree in the description. I'll link you off to podcast providers where you can listen to these on the go if you prefer. But as I say, that's it for now. I'll be back tomorrow to preview the Millwall game, which is so big, it's untrue. And yeah, Boro for me, just have to get past this one. Whether you think we were better and deserved something from the game, or whether you feel like we were lucky not to lose 3-0, we've got to just put this one behind us now. Don't let it dwell. Move on, get back on it, and beat Millwall on Saturday. But until then, do take care, guys, and I'll see you all